Good afternoon to you. Mark Sudduth, HurricaneTrack.com here. It's time for the Hurricane Outlook and Discussion. It is Thursday, the 16th of May, 2024. So glad you tuned in here, watching on YouTube or wherever the case may be, maybe on Patreon. I'm glad you're checking in. So what are we going to talk about today? First, and not necessarily in this order, but we're going to address this record warm Atlantic, the Atlantic Basin, the Caribbean. I've got a few graphs and charts and a couple of maps that I want to show you. And then once we get to that topic, really expanding beyond just the obvious that, oh, this is extra energy for hurricanes, there's more to that story, and I'll tell you all about it coming up shortly. And, of course, we're going to talk about the area of interest in the Eastern Pacific, the odds of that system developing. You know, the computer models seem to be somewhat favorable, so we'll take a look at that. And then a tweet from our good friend Ben Knoll, way down in New Zealand, helping us up here in the Northern Hemisphere with his fine and dandy maps that he does, his animations. I'll show you that and what it shows as we get into June, possibly the first window of opportunity for something to develop as we start the 2024 Atlantic hurricane season in just a couple of weeks. Yeah, we might have a June window of development coming up. First, though, the Atlantic Basin over the next 7 days, probably even longer than that, nice and quiet for now. In the East Pac, we do have this area right here, south of, we'll call it southern Mexico, National Hurricane Center, indicating that conditions could be favorable for a tropical depression to form. The good news is, and we can highlight this, it should remain south of the coast of Mexico, and that is certainly great, especially considering what happened in Acapulco. Yes, it was several months ago, but we don't need any tropical shenanigans anywhere near that area for the next many, many years, right? Absolutely not. So looking at it from satellite perspective, let's use yellow to make this pop a little better. This is our area right through here. Kind of disjointed overall clusters of showers and thunderstorms. Nothing organizing right now. It's going to be a slow process. Still the wildfire smoke from agricultural, I guess, is it really wildfires or is it just agricultural fires? But you can see all this haziness coming up from the south, just something that caught my attention, so I figured I would point it out to you. But yeah, this is the area we're going to be watching in the Eastern Pacific. But like I said, National Hurricane Center pointing out it should stay to the south of Mexico, moving either west or west-northwest with time, so we shouldn't have any issues for our friends in southern Mexico. Meanwhile, the northern latitudes busy with these storm systems. Big hailers yesterday in and around Texas and Oklahoma. My friend Max Olson got his vehicle nice and beat up from that. Very interested in hail, I am, and we're going to be heading back out there next week. Greg Nordstrom and myself for several days as we track down that very expensive part of severe weather, one of the aspects of severe weather. Meanwhile, look at this, kind of a large cyclonic turning feature. Yep, mid-latitude storm off the coast of the Northeast. Water temperatures way too cold for anything tropical, but it's kind of dreary up here, rainy, and we had lots of rain here in southeast North Carolina yesterday, even a couple of tornadoes and hail. Very active pattern with all this mid-latitude energy scooting across, typical for the month of May. And as we look south into the deep tropics through the Caribbean and elsewhere, nothing for the time being. It's still just a little bit too early, climatologically speaking. We usually don't get development in May. Sometimes we do. The last 10 to 15 years or so, we have had more development in May than not, although we seem to have taken, a couple of years off as of late. But maybe things change this year. We'll have to see. And as we look at that tweet from Ben Knoll coming up, the window of opportunity might be coming sooner rather than later. So let's look at the GFS real quick. Again, this is the 850 millibar part of the atmosphere. The atmosphere is made up of different layers. And this is that area of vorticity that we're watching, the energy that's down here. You can see the satellite animation that I showed you. Now, this is what it looks like in the computer models world. And if we scooch this out into time, this is 6 hours, 12, 24, you get the idea. What is it, every 3 hours now? That's pretty good stuff. Or 6 hours it is, sorry. I think the Euro does 3 hours. Anyway, there's 48 hours. Not much to it, really. 72 hours, it starts to congeal just a little bit. And look, you can really see the shape here. There's the wind barbs coming around. It curls up. The energy tries to focus there south and west now of the Gulf of Tehuantepec. But the main thing to emphasize here, the energy does stay south of Mexico, maybe some clouds from it, but most of the heavier rain and any impacts from this should remain offshore. We take this on out to 96 hours. Could have a tropical storm at that point, just looking at it from a purely structural standpoint at 850 millibars. Yeah, that's pretty well organized. Finally, at day 5, yeah, the GFS pretty enthusiastic about it. And if we look at it in the lower part at the surface, you betcha, 979 millibar low, that could be a hurricane. So possibly Eastern Pacific jumping out quickly, taking the lead from the Atlantic. But, you know, the Atlantic's more than likely going to surpass everything this year because of all the stuff we've been talking about over the last few weeks. The warm temperatures in the Atlantic and so forth, right? All right, so what about the Atlantic? When might that become favorable? Well, this tweet from Ben Knoll, latest subseasonal guidance. And you know what that means, right? Subseasonal, it's a shorter time frame. Instead of a longer 6 months of a season, you have subseasonal guidance. And this helps us to understand the movement of the upper air features. And in particular, when the 200 millibar layer of the atmosphere way up high changes from converging, sinking air to air that is rising and spreading out, divergence, and that is shown, and that's what Ben has here in the legend down there. The green is the rising air, and that rising air right now is favored over in the western parts of the Pacific, but that should scoot across to the east, this area of favorability, so that once we get into early June, that says June 6, or I'm sorry, the month is 06, 2024, 06, 07, so the 7th of June through about the 15th, and I'll draw your attention to it right through here, and it looks favorable at that point in time. So we lose the sinking subsidence, the dry air, all that kind of stuff, and not all of it, of course, but it does look like a window could open right at the opening of the hurricane season on June the 1st. So something we will be watching on these types of pieces of guidance, the subseasonal guidance, and then eventually in the ensembles, where you look at all kinds of different computer model outputs, doing all the sort of what-ifs, and the deterministic models. And we'll talk more about that when we get there. So this tells us we need to pay attention, as we should anyway, because it's the start of hurricane season. But this gives us a little bit more specifics that, okay, the first part of June until about middle June, we might need to be really thinking about it. So we'll be watching that, and we'll see what tweets come out from Ben and others as we start to hone in on when that window might start to open. So just to remind you, though, real quick, this is a nice little map that we have from one of our supporters over in Bermuda. Mr. Howard put this together for us. And we can kind of go through and see. Let's just look at the 1st of May over here. These are the areas of development May 1st through the 10th, going all the way back to 1851 through last year. 5 total. So let's take that away. What about where we are now? The 11th through the 20th. More areas of development. And it looks to me, let's count them real quick. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. 2, 4, 6, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. If I counted right. So the Atlantic, I think, wins by 1. So what I'm always confused about, ever since Howard made this map, and we're able to really pull this data up, and let's just look at all of May. There's the 1st to the 10th. We're in the middle part here. Now let's add the 21st to the 31st. Why not just start hurricane season in May for both basins? May 1st. I mean, if you really want to push it and call it May 15th, fine. I would be all for that because, look, the evidence is there. That's the month of May. There you go. Lots of development, all in the western part of the basin. Some of it from Central American gyre activity. Some of it from little fronts and troughs that got offshore or non-tropical lows that eventually became tropical. Nevertheless, there you go. That's what we typically see in the month of May, going all the way back to 1851. Now let's take these away. And as I said, from this tweet here from Ben, looking out June 7th through the 15th, and even before that, the first day and the first week of June. Well, let's see what happens. Climatologically speaking, there's June 1st through the 10th, and there's June 11th through the 20th. So yeah, we have to really start watching, especially down here. I got to make it show up better, yellow, down here in the Western Caribbean and the Gulf of Mexico. Yes, there have been developments, even in June, well east of the islands. If that happens this year, I think that'll be a big sign that we're going to have an epically busy hurricane season. All right, couple things I want to show you here. This is from Dr. Kim Wood. I like to point out who is who and why we follow them. So there are Kim's credentials so that you can follow if you want to. An amazing graph here. What this is showing is the Caribbean Sea and the steady march of the anomalous departure, right? That's the departure from normal, the anomalous temperatures down there. Very, very warm relative to average. And this is the Caribbean Sea we're talking about. See, it's all boxed off for you so you can really get an idea of the map extent that Dr. Wood is talking about here in this tweet. This is important for many reasons. One is the obvious, that if you get a hurricane under the right atmospheric conditions, these record temperatures outpacing 2023. Last year was a record setter. That's the red here. We're even outpacing that. It's not just the energy for hurricanes, but it's just more moisture available overall. And a warmer, more moist atmosphere makes more rainfall. And I've noticed that recently. I don't know, maybe in the last 5 to 10 years, but certainly the last several years. And if you really think about it, it doesn't just rain. It seems to just rain crazy hard lately because there is more moisture in the atmosphere. We can measure that. All right. And so this is important because tropical cyclones are big pieces of energy, releasing energy in the form of wind, and that creates storm surge as a stress on the water, and unbelievable torrents of rainfall. So this extra energy in the Caribbean, in the Gulf, in the Atlantic Basin as a whole, not only fuels the hurricanes for the low pressure and the wind that we're all sort of attracted to. That's what we watch. Yeah, that's what I mean by attracted to. It doesn't mean it's a positive thing, don't get me wrong, but that's the hook. Oh, how intense is it? But we have to remember rainfall, and this kind of additional heat energy in the ocean does translate to more rainfall, especially when these systems are slow moving. So please keep that in mind. Another one, and it just keeps going, doesn't it? This is from our friend Dr. Phil Klotzbach. Yesterday, I think he posted this. Today's ocean heat content in the Atlantic Main Development Region for hurricanes is typically reached on August 1st. So we are currently running 2.5 months ahead of schedule. Not good. And again, that tells us, yes, there's extra energy for hurricanes for the intensity part, but also the additional moisture. And if we get these systems that are just lollygagging around anywhere in the islands, the Greater Antilles, those are islands, the mainland United States, whatever the case may be, Central America, that extra rainfall can be catastrophic. And we have to acknowledge that. We're not just talking about wind and storm surge and low pressure. Rain is an impact. And when I see this, I think everything's just exacerbated because there is more energy available for all the hazards to take advantage of. All right? Just pointing out the facts to you. Okay? Looking at this, graphically on the map, I showed this yesterday, but to reiterate it, there is our very warm Caribbean Sea relative to average. The Gulf of Mexico also warmer than average. And yeah, you get something moving through. It could be intense, but it could also bring with it a tremendous amount of additional moisture. And then there's our cool area, cooling now, the La Nina trying to take shape there like a serpent, slithering its way across the equatorial Pacific. So I've done this before where I went back many different years. Now I'm just going to contrast this and compare it to 2020. So May 15th, 2020, what a fun time that was. Haha. This is what the sea surface temperature pattern looked like. Pay attention to this area right through here, if you would, and then make sure you're sitting down when I show you now. Like, come on. Now you see why we are so concerned. That gave us 30 named storms. What is this going to do? Yes, the La Nina was starting to take shape more prominently back 4 years ago, but everything just looks very similar in terms of the overall progression, with one big exception, and that is this area all through here, markedly warmer than what we saw in 2020. And this data here from Dr. Wood and Dr. Klotzbach helps to drive that point home, and we need to be preparing for that, all right? You know, that line between, as people say, fear-mongering, isn't it appropriate at some point to motivate people and say, look, this does need to make you fearful that major impacts could be coming. So stop sugarcoating, stop trying to ignore it, stop hiding, and stop labeling things, you know, and, well, we don't want to upset people. Well, the alternative is to just be unprepared and have everything you have lost, and maybe even your life. And I just think with all the years of experience that I have and the other people in this business, that we actually have a responsibility to certainly temper, not yelling and screaming and having these crazy headlines and goofy thumbnails, but the facts are the facts. And we look at this and we know this has the makings of a very busy and impactful hurricane season. And, you know, once it all comes down to it, I get it. It's about the impacts. We could have 15 hurricanes, and if they don't affect land, whatever. I get that. But, you know, what are the odds that that's going to happen, right? All right, speaking of rain, very important. And this is kind of related. You got that very warm Gulf, and you got these mid-latitude storms coming along that I've been showing you, and we have a high risk of rainfall related flooding in parts of western Louisiana, eastern Texas. I drove out this way. It was I-20, which is probably just a little bit more north of here, but close to it. And I noticed, especially in western Louisiana and parts of eastern Texas, this is back in late April, the overall background watershed system, everything just seemed to be elevated. And even when my partner CJ and I were out there looking for hail back at the end of April, just driving around in the piney woods, lots of areas looked like the streams and creeks were already swollen. And that's going on, what, 2 weeks ago plus or something like that? 3 weeks ago now. So today we have a high risk of flooding. And, you know, if this was a severe weather high risk, thousands of chasers would be down there. We must treat rain with the respect that it deserves. Flooding is incessant. It creeps in. It's penetrative. You know what I mean? It just comes in and it ruins everything. Water is so key to life, yet it can be so disruptive. Please pay attention to this. If you know people traveling down there, if you are there, keep it in mind and be ready, all right? And that's a good reminder that we are supported by and have a partnership with a great company that provides products that help you prepare for such things. And this is just one of their tabs up here, their menu items, the different products for flood protection, flood kits that they've got. Check them out, quickdams.com. I'm actually going to have, and I know she's looking forward to it, right? Carol Dancer, the founder of Quick Dams, is going to come on in the next few weeks. And we're going to talk about flooding, because I think it is like hail with severe weather. Flooding is still so misunderstood by the public. And, you know, talking with Carol, who runs a company that helps people combat it, that's great. I also want to talk with some people from the Weather Prediction Center about flooding, because we've got to understand these impacts better than we are. We're doing a pretty good job of managing the wind. Got some improvements. Pretty good job of managing storm surge, at least getting people out of the way. I mean, look, when 15 feet of water plus 6 feet of waves is coming, not much you can do. Just hope you have flood insurance. But this kind of stuff you can mitigate against, and it's fairly cost effective, at least compared to replacing your entire bottom floor. So we're going to talk about it in the continuing Hurricane U series over the next few weeks. Lots of topics coming up. Finally, the hurricane map is out, the 2024 edition, and I was overwhelmed. I couldn't believe the amount of emails I got from PayPal. You guys must like these. That really makes me feel good. Yes, it helps with funding. Gas is expensive. Everything we do is expensive, and I appreciate that. But more than that, the fact that you have my creation, and this is what it looks like again just to put it to scale with my big old head. That's what it looks like. You got the picture of me there. This is live. A nice 100-pound stock paper. You need a Sharpie to draw on there. That's the best use anywhere. A good ballpoint pen. And you can get one. And the fact that people did in such numbers yesterday really makes me feel special, because I drew that map in Adobe Illustrator many, many moons ago. It has been modified over the years. My degree is in geography, and that's literally my creation. It's not a clip art or whatever. I talked about this yesterday. So thank you very, very much. And if you want one, you can go to this link here. I forgot to mention the link, but it's real easy. It's HurricaneTrack.com/track map. And I'll put the link in the description of today's video. $20 for the map, $3 for the shipping. I got a nice set of these sturdy mailers. I fold them up. We tried the tubes, but they get rolled up literally by the post office. I don't know if it's the machines or what, but so many people said they were crushed or they never even got them, that when I mail them flat, I have a much higher success rate. There's still some that never get there, which just, if I could hand deliver them, I would, but then they would need to be $1,000 each, because I would have airline tickets involved, rental cars. Hey, maybe we'll do that. Maybe we'll say the first 5 next year, I will hand deliver them to you, and they are $800 each or whatever. Anyway, just kidding. But thank you for those that have ordered. They will be shipping out starting tomorrow night. I go to the post office, I do it myself at the kiosk, and off they go. You'll have them in time for that first name storm. All right, we covered a lot. Try to keep it shorter than yesterday. It was 40 minutes. But there's always a lot to talk about, and I appreciate you tuning in and giving me a part of your day so that I can educate you about what I'm looking at on my side of things. All right? And, of course, we're on YouTube, so don't forget, subscribe, like, share, all that good stuff that makes social media work and the algorithm to earn its name as the algorithm. Alrighty? Have a good rest of your Thursday. I'm Mark Sudduth from all of us at Hurricane Track. I'll talk to you again tomorrow.